right, so we'll go ahead and call this meeting to order. It is 6 p.m. We are here to meet with the Climate and Environmental Justice Commission. I will go ahead and note for the record that Commissioners Blau, Murray, Moore, and Kramer are present. Jacob Byrne, Antrim, Daniel, and Alana Gamache are not here this evening. Now, because our chair and vice chair are both absent this evening, the first thing I'm going to ask for you to do is determine if one of you would like to be the chair for this evening. Obviously, the role consists of making sure that the meeting is moving forward and that we're meeting all of our key agenda items. But if anybody is interested, I will want a volunteer from the group.
So I'm willing, having been chair of Tree Commission, but if somebody else would like to be chair, I'm happy to defer.
Jim, I'm all for you taking it this time around. Thank you.
I appreciate that, Jim. Thank you very much. If you want to go ahead and take it from the approval of the agenda.
So yes, I was getting this ready when you said something. We've gone through the who's present. Okay, then a motion for approving the agenda or comments for amending or changing it.
So I propose that we take the item to consider subcommittee appointments and table that until next meeting when we have a larger group here. So moved.
I second.
Everybody approved that, say aye.
Aye.
So then brief announcements from staff, commissioners.
So we have a motion to take an item off the agenda, but we did not approve the agenda.
We didn't approve it.
So let's do that.
Well, it's a good thing somebody knows what's happening here. So a motion to approve the agenda as amended.
Thank you, Jim.
I second it.
I'll make the initial motion if we still need one.
Okay.
I think we have a second.
She seconded it before you made the motion.
Oh, I second. Sorry. I
All
second.
those in favor, raise your hand.
Aye.
Unanimous. Perfect. So now we can move to brief announcements from staff, commissioners, and council liaisons. Staff?
All right, I can start. So I have two announcements, and then I'll hand it off to my colleague Sam Blacklock over here. So first, the timing of the State of the Urban Forest report. Normally, we would have that in front of you tonight because we already had a meaty topic that we were going to be talking about with the Willow Grove Sustainability Plan and some other changing things with our discussions about urban forestry. We did shift that to November, so we will have the State of the Urban Forest report in front of you in November, pending any other shifting or changing that might occur. Yes?
Quick question on the long-range plan. It was for reviewing the CAP report in November. Are we going to do both of those in November?
Yes. So at this stage,
So we'll have a 7-hour meeting.
we will also potentially have a general fund or general plan update at that meeting. So it will be a fun one. The CAP update probably at this stage, because of the fact that Sam is just now with us, might be a little bit more introductory, a little bit more forward focused. But that's sort of the current plan, is that we would have those items for you guys in November. If there are some challenges and something needs to shift, that's certainly something that we could look for at our January meeting, because we do not meet in December normally as a commission, because the fourth Monday of the month is not a time folks want to be meeting in December. In addition to the State of the Urban Forest, we also, council at their meeting on Tuesday of last week did appoint their general plan committee, which is comprised of members from 6 different commissions. And the 2 members from this commission that were chosen are Sarah Moore and Jim Kramer. So the staff report that came forward with that item has the list of everybody else that was chosen. And city clerk's office should be reaching out with soon, or already has, letting you know. But I also wanted to provide that update as well based on the actions council took last week. And I will hand it over to Sam.
All right, hello everyone. Just wanted to introduce myself quickly as well. I was in the audience at the last meeting, but I'm the new Climate Action and Resilience Program Manager, so really excited to be here. Just as a quick background on myself, I was with the Department of Energy prior to this, and then had some roles in the state at Department of Food and Ag and Fish and Game Commission prior as well. But really excited to be here. Lived in Davis for the past few years, and just, yeah, this role, have a lot of sustainability-focused elements in my previous work that I wanted to build upon, and this seemed like a really good fit. So yeah, I'm excited to work with you all. Also had one quick plug. We're working on launching with our partner Cool Davis a home energy score pilot. So essentially with that, we're going to offer 50 households within the city of Davis free assessment and home report. So basically using that Department of Energy home energy score framework and then using that with 50 homes in the area. They'll get a score, they'll get recommendations on how to improve their energy efficiency within their household, things like that. And it's being done in collaboration with Yolo County. So they're also in unincorporated areas. And we're anticipating it'll be a statewide launch next year as well. So this is kind of happening a little bit prior to that. So if it's oversubscribed, there's that statewide option possibly later as well. So yeah, just wanted to plug that. It's in the process of launching here soon.
So on behalf of us, we want to welcome you, and it's very opportune timing given that CAP issues are coming up. So any other staff?
That's it from staff.
Commissioner, special comments
Welcome.
or announcements?
Yeah, welcome to Sam, and also thank you, Sarah and Jim, for stepping up to serve on the General Plan Committee. Appreciate that.
Nothing for me.
Nothing.
Welcome.
And then from council liaison, Donna.
Thank you. I just want to thank Commissioner Moore and Kramer for serving on the General Plan Committee. I know they're going to really benefit from your participation. Thank you.
Then moving on, we have public comments for anything that is not on the agenda. If there are public comments about agenda items, we'll come to that later. Are there any public comments?
I'm Chris Granger, I'm the Executive Director with Cool Davis, and I just want to say we're really excited to get started. We're really excited that Sam is here, and we're really grateful to Adrian and Stan for holding down the fort for the last several months, and being very supportive of getting us started with this new home energy score launch, which is long awaited since last year when it was approved by the council. So we're just really glad to get started and looking forward to talking to more people in the community about it. Thank you.
Any other comments at this time? Seeing none, we'll move on then. We come to consent calendar. Are there any wishes to remove any item from the consent calendar?
I will say that we did have two minor modifications to the minutes, very small corrections already. We had one motion was assigned to the incorrect person, and then we had another place where there was a name that was incorrect, and those have been corrected. If there are any other smaller, kind of names or minor corrections that are necessary, you can go ahead and give those to me now. I can make those corrections, and we can approve and move forward the minutes with the revisions. If there's larger substantive comments that folks would like to pull a minute of one of the minutes or multiple to be able to discuss, then we can do that as well.
I had a question on if it's appropriate for me to vote on them not being present at some of them.
That's actually a really common question. So it is absolutely fine for you to vote on minutes even if you weren't at the meeting. Essentially, you're agreeing that, based on the folks that were here and their review and they're not having comments, that it seems like this was a good capture of what the meeting was about. So you're welcome to do so. At this point, an abstention would be challenging because it would not pass. So if you're comfortable just trusting that your colleagues have reviewed and they believe that it does, reflect the discussion, then you're more than welcome to move.
Okay.
So any desire to remove an item or to offer amendments? Then all in favor of approving the consent calendar, raise your hand and say aye.
Aye. Do we have a motion and a second?
Move to approve the consent calendar.
Thank you, Jordan. Thank you, Sarah.
One more time around for good measure. Aye.
Right.
given that, I'll add to my welcoming of him to Malcolm Adrian. You can already see how valuable she is.
Thank you very much. For the next item, which is our regular item, I'm going to go ahead and move. And then Eric Lee and the development representative will be sitting here, so give us just a second to get everything ready to go.
Well, and I'll just mention the order here. We'll have the staff report, and then we'll have a chance for us to ask clarifying questions. And then I believe after, Adrian, after the clarifying questions, then we have public comment, and then we have discussion. So we will begin with the staff presentation.
Thank you, Chair. My name is Eric Lee. I'm the senior planner here at the city. I've been working with the applicant on the project. And I have a brief presentation to provide an overview of it. And then the applicant has a presentation as well. So we're pleased to be presenting the project to you tonight. This has been going on, we've been working with the applicant for about 2 years on the application here at the city. And what we're asking from you tonight is your feedback on the draft sustainability plan that's attached to the staff report, as well as any comments you may have on the project consistency with the CAP actions. There's a table, analysis table, also attached to the staff report at the end there. As I said, we've been processing this for over 2 years now. For the general procedures and process, it's been including staff review as well as commission review as directed by the city council. The commission review, we're about halfway through. We've gone through a couple already. We're here tonight with you, and then we've got a couple other commissions that will be reviewing the project and providing comment on their topic issues and areas. We've also been working on the environmental review, and we expect the draft EIR to be out in the coming weeks. And then once we finish all that, complete our review, work out any other details and refinements, the project will be scheduled for Planning Commission and City Council for their consideration. The project site, as you can see on the map, is located just on the northeast portion of the city. It's outside of the city boundaries, but adjacent to the Wild Horse and Palomino developments and north of Covell Boulevard. So it does require a measured JRD vote. So that would happen presumably. And then if that's successful, then there would be annexation by the city. And then that would allow the applicant to move forward with their construction documents and go through that whole process to actually construct it. For a brief project summary, this is in the staff report, but briefly, the project is a residential development. It consists of a mix of different residential units. There's lower density single family units as well as more medium density units, which would be duplexes or townhouses, and then also a high density area with condominiums and the affordable multifamily units. And so the division is a good mix in division here, as you can see, just based on the units and the acreage. The total number of units proposed is 1,250. The entire site's about 232 acres, so that's just a little bit under half. And so the rest of the portion of the site would be largely parks and the urban ag buffer that's required, the green belts. There's a neighborhood retail area, and of course, streets and roads, which can occupy quite a large part of the subdivision. What we're processing for the city is a number of planning applications, which includes this pre-general plan amendment, because we have to designate it for the consistent with the city general plan. There's a pre-zoning, which is this preliminary plan development, which establishes the zoning for the site. And then also a development agreement, which we're working with the applicant on. For this particular project, there's a tentative subdivision map, which is, it actually lays out the lots, as you can see here, and they're engineered, the roads. So there's a lot more detail and engineering involved in creating that application, and it assures the development and assures the city of what they're committing to as well. There's a final plan development, which establishes the actual development standards for the project, as well as the affordable housing plan, which is required by the city. So as I said, we're here tonight to present to you the sustainability highlights, the sustainability plan. I call that just a few of the highlights in here, which are also in the staff report and attached, but primarily the project is proposing to be an all-electric community. They've committed to having all the residents opt into the Valley Clean Energy Ultra Green option. They've touched on the microgrid issue, and if it is available, then they would participate in that. There's also certainly solar PV and EV charging that would be provided and available in the site, as well as like this bike scooter access and transit access. So along Cobalt Boulevard, there'll be new bus stops incorporated to serve the community park as well as the affordable site. The project incorporates low-impact development stormwater infrastructure as well as a capacity for additional flood mitigation. And then finally, the applicant is also in their sustainability plan committed to, if should it be necessary, to offset their greenhouse gas emissions, that they would do to the extent possible, if it's available, would commit to participating in any kind of local GHG offset program that's available. So those are the highlights. There are other features. There's a number of features that are required by the city based on state or city requirements, but all of those are incorporated, in the overall project as part of either incorporated in the project design, conditions. It could be part of the development agreement. So there's an array of ways that it's incorporated, but it's summarized in the sustainability plan, which would become part of the development agreement. I won't go through this list, but as I said, we included a table evaluating the project and identifying all of the CAP actions that are in the Climate Action and Adaptation Plan. The project, for the most part, fulfills and implements the majority of the CAP actions. A number of them are directly applicable. So, for example, the all new electric construction, which the project would comply with, as well as like the urban forest action. In this case, they'd be planting 2,500 new trees, which would be consistent with the climate-ready tree list that the city has. There are other actions which are partially applicable in ways. So, for example, like the first mile, last mile transportation, the project is providing what they can with the scooter and bike share hubs, as well as the transit access, just to improve access, as well as for, so for example, expanding public transit. So while that's really up to the transit providers, they're doing what they can to expand that for the residents of the site by adding the transit stops and the bus stops to the site. And then there are a number of other actions which are identified in the table which do not apply at all to the project. For example, the ones that talk about decarbonizing the city's fleet or downtown parking. So those are identified as not applicable. So as I said, we are just looking for your feedback on the sustainability plan and the project consistency with the actions. In general, staff is supportive of the sustainability plan, and we do find that the project is meeting many of the goals and many of the actions of the CAP, as well as implementing it on a project level. I know the applicant has a presentation as well they'd like to provide, and then we're happy to answer any questions that you may have about the project. Thank you.
We'll try it one more time.
Free try.
And then that will move it forward a little.
Okay, thank you. Good evening. My name is Bree Mobius with Hefner Law, and I'm going to be giving our presentation today from the Willow Grove team, and we're excited to be with you. As Eric mentioned, we've been going to commission, so we are excited to be at your commission and share with you what we think we've designed for our project to meet the goals of the city. And our team, we have a very large team, as you can tell here. I want to highlight a couple people who are here with us tonight. Jason Cole with Black Oak Design, who is our land planner. So if you do have any questions on really the thought that went into each piece of the plan and the connectivity, Jason is here to answer those questions. Vanessa Ericarte will be here. She's teaching at UC Davis right now, so when class is out, she'll be on her way, but she's on our marketing team and also really making sure that our project is Davis. She lives here and is always brings in that Davis touch to our design. Kevin Leamy with Furman and Leamy Land Group is our landscape architect, and so he designed our tree palette and is here with any questions on that. And then Allie Olson is here, our community outreach. You might have seen her at the Second Friday Art About and some of the other Davis events, so she's there. Also, one that we wanted to have with us, we couldn't, Tom McComet with McComet Engineering, we engaged with him to assess the solar potential for the project and initially to see could we do a microgrid and have an analysis of that. So he wasn't able to be here tonight, but I did, if there are questions, from his report that he prepared and the solar analysis, but his firm, that's what they do. They design solar programs and microgrids, so it was great to have him on our team as well. And so Eric mentioned this is where our project site is. We are just east of Wild Horse, and we have that existing grade separated crossing on Cobell Boulevard already, and then we're really close to Harper Junior High. To give just a high-level key project features, it will bring 1,250 new homes to Davis. 20% of those, or 250 homes, will be deed-restricted affordable apartments, and then 23%, or 288, will be condos. So 43% of our project will be attached housing, and then the remainder will be single family. We'll have 19.2 acres of parks, and including we're proposing an indoor gymnasium, because we understand that's been a big need in the city. We will have 1.5 acres of integrated neighborhood commercial that's part of the park to provide a retail offering that's walkable that doesn't exist in that area right now. And we'll have 8.7 acres of neighborhood greenbelts with 3 miles of bike and pedestrian paths, and then 44.3 acres of urban ag transition. That's one place where we'll highlight the urban forest, but overall be 2,500 new trees as part of our project. And then we're also proposing a daycare facility that would be part of the affordable site. And this is a very high level to just step back and to express, because I know maybe it's the first time you're seeing us or hearing about our project, but it's been a long process even getting to come here with you today. And so it started back in 2021 when we submitted our preliminary application to the city. And at that point, we received a lot of feedback and made a lot of revisions to the project. And then in 2022, our outreach team had just meetings with the neighborhood. And what do they want to see? For example, that's where there was requests for retail, for walkable, for Wild Horse residents today that they have nowhere to walk and get a cup of coffee. And so revisions were made at that point. And then in 2022, we submitted our formal application to the city. In 2023 to 2024, we had city review and feedback again and began preparing our tentative maps that I'll talk a little bit about. And in 2025, we've been continuing with our tentative maps, and then our draft environmental report will be out soon. So it's a long process even just to get to be with you today. And our tentative map, we really look at this as our commitment to Davis. And the Subdivision Map Act is, I think, one of the more archaic areas of California law. It's been around a very long time. And the idea behind it is that when you're creating a legal parcel of land that someone's going to own as a homeowner, then you need to know where that parcel is going forward and for all of time. And so the state requires a lot of work and effort and engineering to make sure that you are creating a valid legal parcel that someone can then own. It is an in-depth analysis with engineering that looks at infrastructure, roads, even the turning radius on a street. And so we have to look at all that now in order to present a tentative map to the city. Once we submit what's called our tentative subdivision map and the city approves it, then we go out and we put in that backbone infrastructure, and when we come back, our final map that creates that parcel has to conform to the originally approved map. So we're held to what we said we're going to do, and the city has that check to make sure that we've done what we said we will do. What our team is really proud of is that we are the first JRD project to have ever invested the time and the money in advance of city approval and in advance of the public vote to prepare that tentative map. Historically in Davis, it's gone to the vote, and then the tentative map is prepared after. We've made that investment now to say this is the details of what we're doing, and then it also allows us to build the homes sooner. So once we go to the ballot, then we have a map, and then we can come in and start building those homes sooner. This is just to give you kind of if you look ahead of once it's constructed, what Willow Grove would look like, and this is created from our tentative map. It matches the landscape plan, each tree and everything, so this gives you just a bird's eye view. And turning to your commission's task, and, we wanted to take a minute to step back and what environmental justice is. And I think it's a newer term in land development. And, I'm talking to Eric, I said, well, I can't find a definition of city plan. What is the city? How does the city define environmental justice so that we can make sure we're looking at that? And really, we would love to hear from you. And so this is where we stepped back as well on, well, what does your commission from the city council say that you're looking at with environmental justice? And that, it says you're looking at through the lens of environmental justice and then including all the policies in climate change and how that affects, underprivileged or disadvantaged communities. And so we've tried to focus on that and make sure we're touching on that. But if we're missing something that you want to see in environmental justice, we would love to hear that from you today. And then also, I think it overlaps with the Climate Action Plan, the TR11 of developing sustainable housing. And that sustainable housing is really one way we can serve underprivileged communities and making sure that they have an opportunity to be a part of our development. And so along environmental justice, we have two wonderful partners on our team, and it's Mutual Housing and Alta Regional California. And we have really partnered with them to make sure that we have inclusive and sustainable housing for all segments of the community. Mutual Housing is a nonprofit affordable housing developer based in California, and so that is who is going to be building our 250 deed-restricted apartments. Mutual Housing has developed more than 1,400 affordable units across 20 properties in Sacramento. And they've developed a total of 6 properties, and including 283 units in Davis alone, and those are the locations there. And they're also committed to sustainable development, and so they're working right now with factory-built housing where it can be built off-site, so it reduces the construction time, the emissions, and it can help also deliver the affordable housing up front, or faster. And so with Mutual Housing, we're going to provide the 250 deed-restricted affordable units. That exceeds the requirement in Davis City Code by 177%. We will, consistent with City Code, ensure that each of those apartments is for an income at or below 65% of median income. And our development phasing, which is part of our tentative map, is designed to ensure that the affordable site is delivered early in the process. And we are committing to the city through the development agreement to provide Mutual Housing a construction-ready site before we even pull our first market rate building permit. So before we can go build a single-family home, we will have that site ready for Mutual Housing to start building the affordable housing. We've also added a new bus stop that will be adjacent to the affordable site to provide very convenient access to transit. And then we will also have it adjacent to the existing undercrossing. So it really provides the closest amenity of bike downtown or bike to locations or walk to locations. And then it is also adjacent to our inclusive park that's at the community park. And then we've also partnered with Alta Regional Center of California. And through that, 8 to 10 of our affordable units will be designed to support individuals with intellectual and developmental disabilities. And this is really a shared vision that we have with Alta Regional. And behind it is, at our core as a project, we want to be an inclusive project. We want to make sure that there's housing for individuals. And then adjacent to that, we have an inclusive park that will be 1.5 acres. And then we're also looking for employment opportunities for individuals with intellectual and developmental disabilities at the retail center. And so it's providing that connectivity within the community to ensure that everybody can be a part of it. And why? There's 2,300 individuals in Yolo County with intellectual and developmental disabilities, and 500 of those are in Davis alone. And so there's really a need for housing to serve those individuals. And then not deed restricted, but we're also trying to provide for that missing middle income level, where it's not just deed restricted, but at a lower price point. And that's through our condominium project. And that was added to the project with city feedback and community feedback. And it would be 288 attached condominiums. They'd be about 900 to 1,400 square feet. And we're looking at a price range of the upper 400,000s to mid 600s. And then I wanted to break down, so what we did in our sustainability plan is really try to track the city's cap. And so we went through each element to say, does it apply to us? And if so, can we meet it? And so try to break down the sustainability plan in that way. So just to highlight, as Eric said, we have committed to all electric. There'll be no gas connections at Willow Grove. With community solar, we will opt in all market rate homes to the Valley Clean Energy option, and I assume your commission's probably familiar with what that is, or I could, right, I was gonna say probably more than anyone. So we will opt in all of the houses into the ultra green option. And then we will, with the community microgrids, if the city does develop a type of microgrid or municipal utility, then we would connect to it if it is developed. Solar production, all of our homes, of course, would have solar, and the community gym would have solar as well. Wood-burning fireplaces will be prohibited to reduce emissions. And the entire site, so we are a pretty flat site, and there's not a lot of trees, it's existing ag today. But our entire site balances on site, meaning we will be moving some dirt or doing some grading, but we're not bringing any dirt in and we're not exporting any dirt out. And so that's going to substantially reduce emissions and truck traffic in the truck trips to move that dirt. Our homes will have high efficiency lighting and Energy Star appliances. And then we will also be putting together sustainability options for homeowners that they can choose to invest in, with materials explaining why. And really it's balancing, right? Because we can make the most home with every option in the world, but then we price and let people out of the market. And so it's trying to educate people on these are the wonderful ways, and this is the money you can save, but having them be part of that investment as well. When we go to the transportation and land use element of the CAP, EV charging, all of the single family and multifamily garages will be EV ready. And the community park will have 11 EV chargers and then 32 stalls that will also be EV ready. With the action for the first mile, last mile transportation, we're again working with scooter share, bike share, and car share to make sure at our community park, which is it's a 19.5 acre park and is really intended to serve the greater community. So there's sports fields that'll be lighted, there's the retail, and so we're putting a lot of those amenities right there so that people coming from outside of Willow Grove have easy access to the community park. For the electric micromobility vehicles, we'll have a cycling hub in the community park that can have a charging station. The Transportation Commission, I said that they don't think that would be necessary to relate it to the city, but if the city would like charging stations for bikes and scooters, we would add those there as well. And for pedestrian and bicycle safety, we have designed all of our routes to provide convenient and safe access. We connect to that existing undercrossing, so it gets people across Clovell without having to cross the street. And then we tie into the city's safe routes to schools for all of the neighborhood schools, including the charter schools. And then we expand public transit. We add a new transit station at the community park, and then a new bus stop at the affordable site. And right now, the transit does not want to come into our project, but we've designed the project so that if they change their mind in the future and would like to offer the services in the development, we actually have the space reserved there. It would be landscaped otherwise, but if there's enough interest or desire, then they could do that. And again, the whole community is, and Jason can describe it more, but designed to promote walking and biking and encourage people to not use cars. Here's an image of what we imagine our eclectic retail will look like. And again, the idea is it's walkable employment opportunities that people from our development, Willow Grove, but also Wild Horse, Maze Ranch can walk and get a cup of coffee and then watch their kids' game there. And this was again requested by community members. For pedestrian and cycling pathways, we add over 3 miles of bike paths and pedestrian walkways. And so you can see on the exhibit there where we connect in. It has a central greenbelt spine up the purple line there is up the middle, which is a shared use path. And then we make connections. So when you go to the west, we connect to the existing Wild Horse Trail. And then we also connect to the Gill Trail up in our northeast corner. And then the existing undercrossing, you can see there where the orange arrow is pointing is where the existing undercrossing is. So we tie into that as well. With water conservation, with Climate Ready and private landscapes from the CAP, we will have enhanced landscaping throughout the project. It will be adapted and native plant palette designed to minimize the water consumption and limit the use of turf. And then our urban forest, we think that this meets 2 of the CAP goals, is the cool surfaces and the urban forest, so to create a cooler city. with green space and over 70 acres of integrated green space. We will have shade structures in the park and throughout the community park and in the neighborhood park and the transit station. I can tell you one weighing we did as a project team is parking, solar parking. And when we talked to Tom about if we put in solar covers over the parking stalls, we really had to significantly bring down the trees and couldn't plant trees that would grow tall along Covell because they will shade the solar structures. And so there's balancing there on when to decide to put, solar in somewhere when it would affect the ability to plant trees that could grow taller. And we decided that the trees for existing community members that live along Covell and having that breaking up of space and the shade from the trees would be better than just having the solar panels there. And our urban forest will be 2,500 new trees, and our landscaping will also include pollinator nodes and then a habitat uplifted channel A. So right now, farming happens in pretty close proximity to channel A. We will be adding 50-foot buffer on the north and south of channel A, and that returning that to more natural habitat. We have very limited tree removal. So this is a tree plan, and it inventories every tree on our site. If you see the green circle, that means that those trees are not impacted. And then if you see the red, that means those trees potentially or their roots would be impacted by the project. We are requiring the removal of only 51 trees. And as you can see, that's primarily along East Covell Boulevard for the widening there for the road. We will be planting 115 new trees just along East Covell Boulevard itself. So we'll be replacing those trees and then some. And then if you can see on our western edge, that's the wild horse buffer. So almost all of those trees are actually not our trees. They're within the wild horse buffer, they're not ours. But the reason why we surveyed every tree was to then say, how can we connect the wild horse buffer while minimizing our impacts to existing trees? So we designed our connections to the existing trail based on the trees that are there and to reduce the impact. It also led us to reduce the number of connections we had to the wild horse buffer, because there's some areas that were very dense with trees, and to put in a lot of connections, we were losing a lot of trees. So you can see there that we went with, there's 4 connection points to the wild horse buffer, but really minimizing the impacts to the trees. And then all trees along channel A will be preserved. And for our urban forest, so this is an image of it, but the tree palette with Kevin's help has been thoughtfully selected to maximize carbon sequestration. So we were able to model the sequestration achieved by different species of trees and include trees that can sequester more carbon into our landscaping plan. And then also looking at the Davis's climate ready tree list. The final landscape plan will also include standards for maintenance to ensure that the tree and plant growth and health. And then we're advancing the city's urban forest and management plan. The trees have been strategically placed to help mitigate the effects of climate change and diversify the composition of the urban forest, and we have over 20 species of trees in our landscape palette. And then green space is just a central part of our project, so you can see here it has a north-south connection point with our central green belt, and then east-west connectivity as well. And so this is designed in one way to get people out and have them have a path to walk where they're not in their cars, but then to make green spaces a central part of the project. And then also the climate action plan addresses flooding, and as climate change progresses, the flooding is supposed to increase, and so what can we do as a project to address that? The climate action plan encourages green stormwater infrastructure, which we have achieved. And if I go back, it's probably easier. If you look here on the western edge of our project, the eastern edge of our project in that ag buffer, we have 2 retention ponds. And so it is the green stormwater that's going to capture any of our stormwater because our site drains to the east, and it would capture it all, treat it all there, and then put it into channel A. What we've also done, though, if you see in the north, is we've added a channel A basin. And that is really to address existing flooding problems downstream when channel A gets too full. So if channel A is too full, it can backfill into that. None of these will be holding water year-round. They're just intended to address a high water event or a peak flow, and then they would flow into channel A. And so all of them are designed with the low impact development standards, and again, it's reducing the runoff, it's treating it before it's released into channel A. And then with the flood resilience of critical infrastructure, that addition of that channel A basin is going to help existing flooding conditions downstream by having the ability to hold water. And that is the end of our presentation. I think I neglected to include a slide on the greenhouse gas offsets. And so just to give you an idea of what that would be, is the Climate Action Plan is seeking to do net zero by 2040. And our environmental impact report would require us at the time of development to rerun everything and see where we can get reductions in emissions. And where we can't, which is primarily mobile sources, then we're required to purchase offsets. So we want to work with the city to make sure that there's a way for the city to have an offset program so those dollars can stay within the city and achieve some of the Climate Action Plan goals versus offsets out of state or to another location. So that is the end, and if you have any questions, our team's here, or I'm here as well.
Thank you very much. Very thorough and clear presentation, but I'm sure we do have some clarifying questions. So let's restrict this to clarifying questions, and let's start down there with Jordan and then move this way.
Thank you, Jim, and yeah, thank you for the presentation. I don't have a ton of questions right now. I feel like that was well presented. One question I do have is about the affordable housing, actually. So you mentioned 65% AMI. Is it going to be a mix of income levels within those apartments that averages to 65, or what's that breakout going to look like?
Yeah, it would be a mix, and the reason why, so I think in the past, a lot of jurisdictions would look for, okay, you'd have 20% at very low and 20% at extremely low, and break it up in this rubric. And what people were finding out is that you really need to be flexible to go after the grant programs in place and what they're looking for at the time. And so, and your city code is drafted that way to have that flexibility. So, for example, some programs, it would be 100% extremely low. That's what's going to get the grants and be competitive in that program. And so this could do that and meet that, or it could be a blend. But it's leaving that flexibility with the average coming in at 65% or low. Most of the state programs right now are going to require extremely low and very low categories as well. Sometimes more on that end than even low, but average is.
Thank you. And then along those same lines, you said mutual housing is going to be responsible for the affordable housing development, and so they're going to get a construction-ready lot. Is the developer contributing to the construction of those affordable units, or is that all on mutual housing to take care of?
And we have an affordable housing plan that the city is reviewing right now. We have proposed a cash contribution in it to mutual housing. We have worked with mutual housing on, in Parker, it's Parker Evans who we've been working with, but he's reviewed it. He agrees with what we put in that would allow them to develop it, but we have included that in as the city's reviewing it, and so be negotiated in the DA, but right now it isn't there.
Thank you. I think I'm good for now.
Sticking along the lines of the affordable housing, will those units have any sort of sustainable materials used in the construction of them?
Yes, and that's where, and Parker's described it as factory-built material, so it is and I don't have the details, I have an email he sent me on it, but yes, I think it's more like precast off-site construction. Are you talking about the, like, Energy Star appliances, or are you talking about the construction materials themselves?
I was thinking specifically of the construction materials, if they're looking at using, LEED certified units and stuff like that.
I don't know that they've committed to LEED certified. I think it would depend at the time of what grants they could get and part of that funding package. But they are very focused, mutual housing is, on sustainable construction and using what they can to use mechanisms that do that.
Okay, great. May I offer just another responsive comment to that, because it's a great question. And under the city code, whether you're building affordable housing or I don't want to call it non-affordable, but other housing, you have to use the same materials. So to the extent that the city code requires certain types of sustainability or certain materials to be used in construction, you can't decide to use other materials of a lesser quality in your affordable housing. Great, thank you so much. And I know that your solar person is not here, but hopefully this is a question that he has prepared. You mentioned the different systems for the different units, whether it's low, medium, or high density. Is there any sort of calculation about what percentage of the unit usage that will cover based on the standard
versus the one that they would need to opt into the extra purchase option?
Yes, so we can cover about, just with, about 52% if you include summer and winter, and that's kind of the catch part, get a lot less in winter. So we can, with the standard city code requirement, we would cover about 52% of our energy use. And then on the larger ones, it would depend on, so he has prepared what the roof size potential is. There are more strict setbacks now than there used to be for fire, and so, for example, he's explaining, fire does not want us to put solar anymore above kitchens, because they want to have access to the kitchen. So you have to factor in kind of all of those restrictions, and then we could produce more solar. I don't have the exact percent that we could produce if people opt in for a larger system, but we can cover 52% just with the Davis minimums.
Great, thank you. And I think that's all clarifying questions I have. Thank you.
Oh, can you repeat your name for me first?
Yes,
I kept it.
it's Bree
Okay.
Mobius.
Thank you. Question related to solar. What is the vision for battery storage on site?
That's a great, and I had Tom prepare, and I can hand this out to you as well, just an overview. Right now, we are not proposing battery on site, and that's with engaging with Tom about that, and I can give a couple reasons why. One, batteries inside each unit. Tom's opinion is that's not, the technology is moving away from that, because those batteries are not large enough, and I can give you the exact numbers from what he gave me, but you can't actually run your house on that battery that you would put in. He said where the technology is really going is to running your house in an emergency situation off your EV car, because that battery is substantially larger. Then when you get to larger batteries, in the projects he's working on that are residential and this dense, because the density also reduces your VMT, so there's benefits to density, that fire is not permitting these large batteries that close because of fires with them that have been happening. And so I can pass this out if it's helpful, because with some pictures of it, but essentially it's large industrial type looking to have them approved by fire. They're within multiple covering units, so that if a fire does break out, it's contained. We are not proposing to do that, and part of that is that even if we did that, we cannot be a microgrid or a micro project and produce enough electricity on our project to run ourselves as an entire, no PG&E essentially, and so we do not think that that is worth the cost benefit, nor do we think that someone's going to be really interested in buying a new home right next to a large battery storage facility. So we are not proposing batteries at this time, either in the garages or larger systems for that reason. And the other piece he explained to us too is even if we do these larger batteries to do a more communal approach, the solar in each individual house is connected to that house. And so that they're not necessarily designed to take everybody's solar and aggregate it and go put it in a battery here. It's designed to be running your own house off of it. Maybe the exception to that would be the condos potentially and the affordable site. And the battery size we would need, we cannot get the setbacks and the space to put those in between the apartments and the condos.
Thank you, that's very helpful. Next question, also related to solar. So the Valley Clean Energy, Ultra Green opt-in, that opt-in would be done by the developer, and then the individual homeowner could opt out. Is that correct?
Yes, and we would, as part of our sustainability, is encouraging people, explaining people why, and giving them education about it, but yes, they ultimately have the decision whether they would remain in that. We can't force them to stay in, but we would opt them in and then explain the benefits of it and hope that people would want to continue to participate.
Okay, thank you. Last question. There was a mention in the materials that we were provided something about community gardens, and the way it was worded was a little bit confused. Like private community kind of?
So, no, it's okay. We originally had a community garden proposed within our ag buffer, and I would say the city reaction to it was not favorable. So we took it out, and we wanted to leave, we like the idea of it, but we wanted to leave it within either the condos or the apartments as an option, as long as the city felt comfortable that it would be privately maintained by an HOA, so that the city would have no maintenance obligations. So that's probably why it was worded lightly, or you might have sensed that it was worded as a lighter commitment, because we've been getting mixed feedback on.
Okay, thank you very much. That's it.
Thank you. I'm going to shift the focus a little bit as a member of the former tree commission. I have several questions related to the urban forest. You used the term urban forest, but it wasn't clear to me if that only constitutes the 2,500 trees that are sort of along the streets, what the city calls street trees, or if somewhere separate there's a grove of trees as an actual tree forest.
Yeah, and I'll probably invite Kevin up only because he's here and he's the better expert on this, but yes, there is all the street trees, and then above the Channel 8 basin, there's really more of a grove, but.
Yeah, and along the west side as well. So we have both in the ag buffer as well as.
If you can, yeah.
Good evening, Kevin Leamy from Leamy Land Group. Thank you for your question. So yeah, there's a combination of both. So it'd be the street trees, but also we have, as you saw in some of those slides, there's a big paseo going north-south as well as east-west. So a lot of that will be trees along that paseo as well as the buffers along the north side and the east side of the project as well. So the urban forest would be all of what we're encompassing.
But there wouldn't be a grove of trees up in the northern ag preservation land along that drainage canal?
Well, we're outside of the buffer, but we do have trees that are up in those areas, yes.
Okay. So next question, the diagram shows trees along Covell on the southern boundary, which is very good. I mean, that tends to buffer, residents from the auto exhaust and so on. But the transportation planning analysis seems to imply that you'll need to, or they're recommending widening Covell to have a right turn lane, and that might eliminate those trees. Will there still be some sort of a buffer there?
Yes, and that's part of the tentative map process when we have to go into those details. So our right-of-way, our road, it allows for a full widening of Covell without touching our landscape plan or any of the project plans. So the trees would be planted even with the widening or the extra turn lane.
Will the tree planting be wide enough and intensive enough to actually serve as a buffer protecting, because it's just north of that where all the high density and affordable housing is, will they be protected from the pollution from all the auto exhaust on Covell?
It's a 50-foot, beyond the edge of right-of-way, it's a 50-foot landscape buffer before we even hit our parking lot or the affordable site.
Mm-hmm.
So there's 50 feet there of the buffering with the landscaping and the trees.
Thank you. How will all of this landscaping and trees, how will it be maintained and by whom? Are these basically street trees that the residents are responsible for, or are they the project trees that the project is responsible for over the long term?
It'd be a combination of both, and the third one as well as being city trees. And so, but the primarily ones that are on the lots, those would be the individual homeowners. In the condos and the apartments, those will have HOAs. And then for the other landscaped areas, including the park, we're proposing that we will build it. That is our cost, and then we give it to the city. That will come with what's called a community facilities district. And so it is a funding mechanism to make sure that the city has ongoing taxes that the residents then pay to cover their share of the city maintenance of those trees.
So in some of these cases, the project will be planting the trees, but then the resident is responsible for maintaining them. Will your education and enforcement deal with that? I mean, we have problems sometimes.
Understood, but as far as I know, Davis has a pretty robust tree program right now, right? With residents can come when they have new trees in their front yards, they can pick from a select. So I think it would be similar to some of that. So the ones that are in the homeowners would go through that same process of being able to select a tree if they need to replace it. But yeah, we would have, and what we do usually, as you talked about, was a lot of maintenance best practices, right? The thing gets handed out to everybody this is the best way to maintain this stuff. And that's part of the sustainability that'll go along with the electricity, all the other things they do for the homeowner as they get that packet.
Okay, and I'll just, as a side, mention to Eric and to Adrian that we're already struggling to maintain our street trees, and this would add to that. So next month, we'll talk about that. So you may have already covered this, but I'm not sure to my satisfaction. At our last meeting, we spent a lot of time talking about shade in parking lots. And I agree, having tall trees sort of obviates having solar panels, but do you have any trees in the parking lot? What kind of shade is there covering the parking lot?
Yes, and we would have the shade trees, and typically what we try to meet is 50% shade coverage. So yeah, there'll be finger islands, there'll be trees on the north and south and east sides and island. So yeah, we'll have as much shading in the parking lot as we can.
I mean, that's what we're hoping for is 50%
Yeah,
at
that's
a
what we're-
minimum.
On a minimum, we'll go above that.
But based on our discussion last month, that's 50% of the whole paved area, not just 50% over the parking spaces.
If I might add, just currently, so the modifications to the code that happened at the last council meeting have been introduced, so there will then be a second reading and then 30 days before they are implemented. The way the project has been drafted up till now would be our existing requirements. Yeah, so it wouldn't be the newer ones yet.
Right. But along those lines, everything is moving along. The Measure JR, the construction and so on wouldn't be until next year, and by then the new code might be in, if they're planning now based on the existing code, and there's changes in the code, would they then have to conform to the new code? I mean, you know, it's a moving target for them.
I will let the planners speak on that.
Right.
It depends on what goes into the development agreement, whether or not the city and the applicant agree whether or not to lock in and vest certain current standards, or whether the maps will be subject to then current standards when we process the tentative subdivision maps.
Yeah, I mean, my question basically is about more than just trees. I mean, the whole solar and everything, if our codes are changing, what does that do to them? So you mentioned a greenhouse gas offset possibly. Is there any ag land offset?
Ag mitigation, absolutely, is for the loss of the ag land?
Yeah,
Yes, so we will comply with the Davis Code on that, and LACWA has their policies, but yes, we're required to, I believe it's 2-to-1, but I don't have that in front of me, but yes, we will be mitigating for all the loss of ag consistent with the code.
thank you. I think that's all I have. Are there any additional clarifying questions?
I think I have one kind of going back to the microgrid topic. So if that were to become a possibility in the future, is what I'm hearing correct, that there's pretty minimal space for any sort of battery facility on the development as laid out right now? There wouldn't really be an opportunity in the future to kind of bring one in if the city were to create more opportunity to connect with the city utility or city microgrid?
No, I don't see battery storage as an option in part the way that we've designed, and then we also have our detention basins and stormwater basins. That was another thing as we looked at solar in those areas, and the city would have to be wanting to put solar over those, which we don't think, but no, there is no reserved area for any battery storage.
Thank you.
Any other clarifying questions here? Seeing no more, then we move on to public comments. Most of what I thought was the public or members of the team, but are there any public comments?
Hi, Chris Granger with Cool Davis. I just have a few questions, actually, from the conversation. I'm intrigued to hear more about the mitigation planning. One unfortunate reality right now is that both this commission and the Transportation Commission, that is the other half of climate review, don't actually dig into the environmental documents anymore. And that means that there's no substantive discussion expected here about greenhouse gas reduction and what the actual greenhouse gases are for the project. So, but I would hope that that kind of intense kind of look at it would help, and also that a better understanding of what kind of mitigation is possible, and seeing that really as a part of the development agreement would be really substantive progress, I think, for our review of proposals. So, thank you.
Seeing no other public here to comment, we'll move on, and I think to discussion and comments. And why don't we reverse direction? We'll start with Sarah and go that way.
I am not prepared to discuss at the moment. I'm still thinking.
One thing that wasn't super clear from the maps we were sent, but I did see some flashes of them in the presentation, were the thoughts around the bus stop, the bike storage, those types of things. I don't know if my commentary, but one thing that I've seen in other cities that are really pushing for green transit initiatives is really thoughtfully designed hubs. So rather than just a bus stop, benches, three-sided structures for all-season transit, bike storage that's not just straight parking, but covered or even secure bike storages, especially if you're planning it around the community hub. So I think if that is something that you had, like I said, I think I saw one flash of something that looked potentially in there, but that could be something to highlight as well.
Absolutely, and may I respond?
Please.
And partly it's with all the commissions trying to break up of what I think, so you are correct that I did omit those slides, but and this is not, just to give you a little bit, but it will be more in depth of this, but this is taken from, so our transit, this is a transit station, it will likely be, expanded upon, but it will be covered, absolutely, there will be benches. We have talked about the real-time bus arrival boards, if the technology is there and transit can work with that. And then the bicycle hub is there. We have proposed a bicycle repair station as part of that, and then the bus stop as well would be not as large because it's just really serving that affordable site more. This is the larger site, but would have shade and covering and benches as well, so.
Yeah, and I'll just add, sorry, so while the tentative map has a lot of detail, it doesn't have this level of detail, so when they do the construction document, the improvement plans, that'll be something that the city reviews, that'll be reviewed by certainly all the transportation folks, public works, and some of it may come back to commissions, so for example, the parks, we'll go back to the Parks Commission for them to look at the overall design, so definitely this will get a lot more attention.
Is there any thought, I know, as the progress develops, but for that secure level of bike storage for especially the affordable housing area, has that been thought about at all?
And can you just describe, we've talked a lot about bike, but when you say secure level, like are you thinking like lockers where you go
Either
in
a locker where you can, check it, or at least have it being an indoor space where it's not accessible, definitely at the very least lighted to reduce, everyone loves to say the number one crime in Davis is bike theft. So, especially for an affordable community, that could be a real detriment to them.
No, we absolutely can look at that.
Yeah, and our bicycle standards, our requirements do require long-term bike parking, which is defined as secure, so not just outdoor parking. So it does require some kind of secure indoor parking. There's flexibility there because obviously every project's a little bit different, what they're able to accommodate and where. But.
And we have talked, so that's the community gym you see there. We had talked about whether any part of that gym could serve that purpose as well. And then part of it's work with the city because it would be a city maintained facility after we build it. But that was an indoor space without building another building itself.
Great, thank you. That's all I have at the moment.
Thank you. Yeah, I would echo locked bike storage. I think is really an important feature here to really make sure people are actually, even if they have the opportunity, right, feeling confident to leave their bike there if they're going to work for the day or taking the bus into Sacramento, whatever that looks like, right? And you know, another thing that came up, this is partially through the public comment, but I think it was a really good point, is that connectivity on the eastern end of the site to the elementary school across the street. You know, I think that we know that there's that great separated crossing all the way at the west end. I know when I was in middle school, I would not have gone all the way to the west end of the site, I would have just crossed the street. So I think, you know, the more that the project can look at alternatives to making a safe cross, or as safe a crossing as possible on that eastern end to get to the elementary school, I think would be, you know, I said middle school, the elementary school, right? Either way, I think that would be a really important consideration. It looks like that could be tricky from a design perspective, but even if that's, you know, better signage and better wayfinding and better striping on the street there in Cabell for, you know, for drivers to make sure they know there's cyclists there. I think that would be really important here for anybody living in that development looking to get across the street to the elementary school there. Beyond that, I do think that, you know, looking at putting in as much EV charging as possible as well. I think increasing the total amount, and even, you know, I don't know if this is an option that the developer's considering, but, you know, including an add-on to say, not just, hey, we have space ready for your EV charging if you want to install it later, but that's an option we can add in on construction. I don't know if that's feasible, but I think that would be a good thing. And then I think also increasing the amount of EV charging in the public spaces, in the park parking, all of those things, even beyond, if this is, you know, something the developer is open to and beyond the existing standards, because I think those are light for what we need to see in the future for EV charging.
And if I can, do you mind if I respond to your, on getting to Harper Junior High, so we have the existing undercrossing, then we'll be adding a crosswalk at Alhambra at our project entrance, and then we will also be adding a crosswalk that will go straight to Harper. So for the students who don't listen to their parents and go to the undercrossing, they will have a crossing there. On EV charges in the garages, we talked to Tom about that, you know, should we add that or should we not? And the reason why we are not proposing it is because right now there is not a universal EV charger. And so if you buy a Tesla, you need a Tesla charger. If you buy a Rivian, maybe there's gonna be some overlap, but most manufacturers don't have it, and he gave me the name of it. There was one that was starting to become universal and they went bankrupt. And so, you know, and they're not even supported at this time. And so to your point, could we potentially offer, you know, kind of pick your make and model type of battery? We might be able to do that, but that's why we're not proposing to just put them in, because everybody might want something different. And then increasing, I did write down increasing EV charging. That is, what we are proposing is slightly above code, but you're correct, it's not substantially above code.
That's all I have for now.
So I found this very frustrating. My experience on commissions is that we delve into things very carefully and come up with all sorts of revisions and suggestions, and I found this proposal so good that it's very hard to come up with anything. So many of my comments really are more laudatory, thanking you for the effort that you've made. I know part of that is some of your developer people have long history in Davis and want to do good things. So I found the urban forest part, the trees and so on, very good. Lots of trees, we like that. I worry a little bit about the maintenance, but there's only so much you can do on that right now. The street design and so on seems really good for facilitating active transportation. You know, transportation is the source of about 70% of the greenhouse gas emissions in Davis, and so we really want to do as much as we can, but there's only so much you can do. There's strong support in city for promoting bicycling and transportation, and there's very strong opposition to anything that discourages automobiles. So we're limited, but it seems like you've tried your best and done what you could that way. It seems like you've located the high density and affordable housing in an appropriate location with some attention to buffering it from the exhaust fumes, and that gets to the environmental justice issues. So that was very good. And again, compared to other projects we've seen, you're going through CAP and looking at every single thing to see how you can comply is highly commendable. Looks looks like you have your eye on Measure JR and so on, of what you can do to get this approved. I guess my only comment for what could be done more is that in many areas, you're sort of doing what's minimally necessary to comply with codes and so on. And I would hope, I mean, I know that there are price constraints and so on. I mean, you know, you're not altruistic in doing this at a financial loss for the benefit of the community. But whenever possible, to try and go beyond what's the code. So for example, we've talked about, several people have here mentioned solar. Your rooftop solar on average is just providing 52% of the energy needed. You don't want to comply, you know, provide 100% because you want people to have incentive to conserve and so on. But it would be nice if you could go beyond 52%. Similarly with recharging, it would be nice if a little bit more could be done to actually provide recharging rather than just making it wired so that it's possible in the future. And there were other areas also, I think, where we would hope that you can, to the extent possible, go beyond what is required. I think that that's all I have to say. At some point, I mean, we have further comments and all, but Adrian, at various times, we've not just for things like this come up with our discussion, but we've actually had motions and recommendations. Is that what we're looking for, or with just four of us here and we're all in agreement, is it enough to have just this discussion?
You know, it can go either way. You could have formal motions, or you could have sort of a general consensus of this is sort of the feedback that we're providing to you. I think sometimes folks prefer the motions because just formally then it's very clear to council what you're suggesting. I will say that, you know, in addition to sort of keeping track of the conversation, I know we've had 3 things that it seems like there's consistency in supporting. So the lighted secured bike parking, increasing publicly available EV charging, and then identifying areas in the project where you could feasibly go beyond minimum city codes. Those are the things that I've heard, you know, has been consensus. So certainly as we go, I can continue to collect those items, and then towards the end of our discussion, we can consider whether or not that's a motion, you know, to say here are the things that we would, you know, present to the applicant to take forward to the planning commission, then take forward to city council, you know, from this commission.
But you'll be very helpful with that, with your list already. So let's go through again if there's additional comments or discussion.
I feel like my fellow commissioners have covered the questions that I might have had.
I think I want to combine our 2 for like a sub one. In the plan that you provided us, you have a comment about providing electrical bike and scooter charging stations if desired. I think we would just say, yeah, we desire.
The Transportation Commissioner did not, that's why I added it. So I didn't, it's kind of like those types of things, it's like we think it's a great idea, and then we get feedback and maybe it's not.
Right, and some of it is because we work with the companies who provide that, so they may or may not want that there, so certainly we're open to it. I think it's something we would explore, and we certainly hear what you're saying. And
Yeah, I personally know multiple people that, you know, ride electric bikes of their own, you know, so I could see them being very fond of that option.
There's a slight dilemma here where we're supposed to be working on CAP, and 70% of the greenhouse gas are from transportation, and so we naturally have some thoughts about transportation which might not agree with the Transportation Commission.
Yeah, one other thing I would add, and I would also say that just for our group up here as commissioners, I do think we should at least consider a motion, it doesn't have to be right now, but to basically take a little bit of a stance on this project, whether we feel like it's good or it needs, further revisions kind of thing. I feel like I recall us doing that on a prior presentation. I think that's important to just communicate to council and planning commission, sort of the consensus is we can build it here. One thing I'd like to bring to the commission, or kind of have the commission think about a little bit, is that Valley Clean Energy opting folks into the kind of their Ultra Green program, and recognizing folks could turn right around and opt out of that as they, get into their unit or into their home. Is there anything else we want to consider there in terms of the developer working with Valley Clean Energy to move in that direction of, sustainable energy generation for the site, whether that's a contribution directly to Valley Clean Energy or something like that we want the city to consider in the development agreement? I'd be interested in the commission's thoughts on that.
In my case, the only thing that immediately comes to mind would have been solar panels in the parking lot, which would then feed into, community rather than the individual homes and all. But I think, we've dealt with this in the past, that there's a real difficulty with trees and solar panels. So I personally, maybe others do, but I don't think of anything more for Valley Clean Energy. Unless Valley Clean Energy is working on microgrid, and if there's more to be done and more than just sort of thinking about it and so on, if there's specific wiring and connectivity that needs to be in place in advance, that would be something that maybe Valley Clean Energy might be working on and working with you on.
There are a number of logistical and operational things that would need to happen for that to occur beyond what Valley Clean Energy would do. So it's highly unlikely that they would be working actively on that here in this area without other things happening from the council's perspective first. But obviously, those are conversations that are happening right now because of things that are happening in other communities. So it's a great opportunity for us to see what's going on in those other communities and how successful those projects can be, and then look at opportunities for us to learn and maybe create some of those ourselves. But the other piece that I would add is generally, you're going to want something that's more comprehensive than just this specific project because you want it to be repeatable, right? So there's some planning and there's some sort of testing and all kinds of things that would need to occur before we move forward with something like that, with a project moving at the speed that this one is, which I know we're all like, that's no speed at all. But in terms of what that would look like, it's moving a little faster than we would need for that type of a piece of that project.
And from what I've seen and read, much of the microgrid work that's being done in other communities is more smaller scale, focusing on hospitals and police stations and so on. It's not a whole residential area.
Right, yep.
And what Tom is, since he's not here, because I have the understanding from looking at prior development agreements just in the city that you had to put in special conduit for a microgrid. And, when we met with the utility consultant, they said, well, you'd have to need the specs to know what that is. But the way Tom has explained the microgrids that work at a city level is you're not an island. He said if you look at any case where someone created an island, like Davis is, whether it's Willow Grove or Willow Grove and Palomino, we become a microgrid island. He said that's not how those function. You are putting in PG&E lines and you are connecting to the system because you need a grid system that is repetitive and you have the same wires in the ground, but then you're using meters to then use that thing. So we would be able to connect, even if the city develops a microgrid in 5 years and our houses are built, it can, he said, explain that we can just connect into with the PG&E wires that we put in, we would be able to connect into the microgrid system.
So for unexplained reasons, I just thought of another clarifying question, if we can go back to that. You have in your, on the periphery, various paths for people to walk on and all. What is the shading on that? Again, in prior discussions, we wanted at least 50%, sometimes 80% shading over bicycle and walking paths.
They are all landscape. I'm looking at, I don't know if we have a percent yet, but we are striving for them all to be shaded, and that's a big part of kind of the urban forest piece. The Wildhorse buffer has the trees there as well that we connect to, but all of our trails are landscaped.
Yeah, I think that would.
I mean, most of you have been in Davis during July and August, so you know.
And if Vanessa was here, she would tell you she got proposed. So she's not here, so I have to, speak on her behalf on the trail there, and I think that there was not shade in the moment that happened, so. On the Wild Horse Trail, but.
So any further, I sense not. We should then move to motions. And Jordan, you had some thoughts there. You've been good at developing motions in the past.
Those are very kind words, Jim. I don't know if I'd use good to describe it, but thank you. Yeah, I mean, I think the main thing, I think we can come to this at the end if the group here agrees, is just to basically make a statement. I would say in support of this project generally. Maybe there's quibbles here and there, things we think could be better, of course, but I think I would propose a motion along those regards, which I'm happy to kind of sketch out and make here.
I think it would be more specific in line with what our commission is responsible for, to say that it seems to work very well with CAP and with the urban forest management plan, that those aspects seem to be developed very well. Adrian, you have that motion, the wording?
No, it is your motion, but I will say, so yeah, if Jordan, if there's a way to incorporate the reference to the CAP and the urban forest management plan into what you might look to put together.
I'm working on it, give me that.
So that would be one motion generally in favor, but then maybe a second motion where we urge them to go beyond the minimum code requirements whenever feasible.
So there's kind of one of two ways we could do this. One is, and I think what we did with the comments back on the Village Farm Sustainability Plan was there was one overall generally accepted, look forward to this project motion. And then there was a specific motion, in that case, sort of for each section of the plan that was presented. It does not sound like that would be what we would need for this evening. Potentially that next motion would be, with that being said, the commission also supports the following, modifications to the project as discussed. And then we could include the lighted secured bike parking, the increasing publicly available EV charging, identifying areas in the project where you could feasibly go beyond minimum city codes, and then based on our just discussion right now, ensuring that walking paths and trails are shaded by trees as much as possible. So that would be sort of the things that we would include as specific items.
Is there a second to that motion?
I am not making your motions for you,
I think one of us has to summarize that from Adrian here.
but I can write it up again if you would like.
For the project people, the background here is that Adrian is incredible at making sense out of things and coming up with a motion.
Are you able to share it on the screen, or is that too complicated?
At this point, no, because I don't have it quite yet, but Jordan's working and I'm working and we will get something for you.
And I'm sorry, I was actually working on this other motion as we were talking about that, but we also, I believe on Village Farm, just sort of broke it out into one item at a time, right? We did a motion on, lighted bike parking. We did a motion on.
We did. I think part of it was there were multiple points within the discussion where there were items that were like, hey, this is something. But given, the smaller group that we have today and sort of the consensus that we've already seen, we think we can feasibly do that in one, unless logistically it would make sense for us to go ahead and make those 4 separate motions in addition to an overall motion in support of the project.
I'm comfortable doing it all at once. If somebody can draft it up, I got one on my plate already.
I'm working on it.
I just missed one of the 4, but I don't know which one of the 4 I missed.
So what I currently have is lighted secured bike parking, increasing publicly accessible EV charging, publicly available EV charging,
That was it.
identifying areas in the project where you could feasibly go beyond minimum city codes, and ensuring that walking paths and trails are shaded by trees as much as possible.
got mine, if we're ready for it, and we can tag on what Adrian's helping us with. And I think I'll just lead in by saying to the project team here, I did really quite appreciate the presentation, and I also very much appreciate you putting a tentative map together before this goes to the ballot. I think that's, it's an expensive precedent, but I think it's a good precedent to set, having, you know, I think we've all seen projects that have had very good things about them go to the ballot and you know, be unable to meet that threshold. So I do think this team is taking a really strong approach to building that support for this project across a variety of ways, and also bringing something that is more of a firm commitment to the community to the ballot, which I really do want to commend that. So I think in terms of language for a motion here, I would move to state that the Climate and Environmental Justice Commission generally supports the project as described and feels that the development team has made substantive efforts to align the project with the Urban Forest Management Plan and the CAP, and that it would be a good addition to the community from our perspective.
I'll second that. Discussion? Does that sound okay? All in favor of the motion as read?
Aye.
Aye.
So we might say here, the commission would like to add the following suggestions for the project for consideration by the applicant, the planning commission and city council. The inclusion of lighted secured bike parking, increasing publicly available EV charging, identifying areas in the project where you could feasibly go beyond minimum city codes, and ensure that walking paths and trails are shaded by trees as much as possible.
I'd like to make that motion.
Thank you.
I'll second.
Any discussion or amendments? All in favor, raise your hand, say aye.
Aye.
Great, thank you. That is our discussion for our first item. We do still have one more item left on the agenda, which should go super quick, but give us a minute to get settled. If we need a break, that might be an opportunity for us to take one.
No, 2-minute break.
Thank you, Jim.
Thank you. Our 2 minutes are over.
Thank you for keeping us. All right, so we will go ahead and resume our meeting, knowing that there's going to be a little bit of conversation out there. All right, so we have tabled our second item, which is the discussion of the subcommittee for the next available meeting, that we have an opportunity to have everybody here. The last item, besides the the long range that we have on our calendar, is just a spot check. So the 4th Monday of November is the Monday of the week of Thanksgiving. And so we wanted to check in with the commission to make sure that we would have a quorum for that week, which is of course 4 people. So there's no action on this item. It's more just kind of a general idea. We will also send out a sort of poll later on, to make sure that it's still the same. But just to know, are folks going to be here that Monday, the week of Thanksgiving, knowing that we're going to have some pretty meaty topics coming forward, which are really exciting, some of them time sensitive, some of them less, so we can look for making sure that we have a doable agenda, but just to check in.
When you say the week of Thanksgiving, it's the Monday before Thanksgiving, right?
Correct.
It's not the
Yes.
Monday after.
No, it is the Monday before Thanksgiving, so the 24th, I think? Yeah,
I'll be here.
I will not be here.
okay.
Unfortunately, I regret that I will not be at that meeting.
It's a weird time to be available, I know. I do know that one of our commissioners who is not here this evening will be here. So in terms of the group of 4 here, we have a replacement in our quorum, but not a replacement in our member.
But we don't know. Are you?
I will be in town, yes.
Yeah, I'll be around as well.
Okay, so we will have at least a quorum, including Commissioner Daniel, who is not here this evening.
As of now,
As of right now, we will check again.
who knows what will be transpiring?
Absolutely, absolutely. But that's helpful for us, so we know. And I know that one thing that has been on our long range, to shift to that item in the discussion, has been looking at that 4th Monday in terms of the timing of the commission meeting. And I will say, as I think has been said a couple times, we all need to meet here as commissions in the chamber, and that does make it a little bit challenging when you have 11 commissions, and when you're trying to organize the time of your council liaison and other folks to be able to attend. Generally speaking, the challenges that we have for this commission with attendance are going to be May, because the fourth Monday of the month in May is always a holiday, so we look for an opportunity to have a different day for the month of May. And then in December, because that is generally going to be either Christmas or right before or right after. So we only really have those two challenges. This year, we've had some other challenges in scheduling that have been outside of what are, it's a holiday or something. It's been somebody else needs the chamber for a higher priority effort. Maybe it's the Social Services Commission looking at Village Farms project, which was why we didn't meet in April. So looking at that, I don't know that there's another great time for us to be meeting, and whether or not that frankly would make a huge difference in being able to have consistency in meetings. But just to say, we do the best we can. We know that Monday or May is always going to be a challenge, so we look, in April to make sure we know when we're meeting in May, if not that fourth Monday. But generally, those are going to be the more challenging months, and that's part of why we just don't meet in December as a commission. And not a lot of commissions meet in December, I will say.
Quick question.
Yeah.
We also don't meet in July.
Mm-hmm.
Is there a reason why we could meet in July but not meet in May?
So generally speaking, council would like for their recess to be the recess for all of the city's sort of bodies. So because their recess is in July, the commissions also recess in July. So everybody does. Certainly, you could have basically May become on call. And let's say there's really not an item that's time sensitive that is popping up in May. So potentially, if we don't have an item that's time sensitive, we just kind of let May go. If there is something that's sensitive, then we would look to the effort of scheduling a special meeting for that month. And that's always an option.
Well, given that we're next month doing CAP and urban forest management and something else all in one meeting, we can just do the whole year's work in April and then not meet in May.
That's an option. So in visiting the long-range calendar, which is that last item that we have on our agenda, so coming up for our meeting next month, as Jim said, we have a couple things. So we have a deferred item potentially, although we could look to discuss the establishment of the subcommittee in January, because it is not necessarily as timely as some of our other items are. We have the state of the urban forest, which would normally be before you in October, but because of our discussion today, we did shift that over. And then also the general plan, there will be a introduction from our planning team for that meeting as well. We also have the CAP sort of update, though again, what form that takes at this point, I think will be more of a forward-focusing kind of, here's what we're going to be working on effort versus here's what we've done, because we've got somebody brand new in the position, although we've of course been doing some things. So that's quite a number of items. Prior to our posting for the meeting in November, we'll obviously connect with the chair and make sure that we've got enough items to have a meeting, but not too many that we would have a 5-hour meeting.
Given that he's new, would it make sense to defer CAP until January?
We could absolutely do that as well.
If you want to suggest.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm thinking that the urban forest management plan is important because there's staffing issues and so on. And then you said that we may have, general plan stuff. So to me, at least, it would look like we would have a better discussion of CAP if it was in January.
We can absolutely do that because there is not, a time frame limitation on that, so that makes it easier for us to shift it. I think, it is nice to have those points in the calendar where we have some consistency, which certainly we will work toward. But as we know, things can shift based on the timing, and it's not that normal that we have two such large development projects that are moving forward. So it makes sense that we've had some shifting over the past year for sure. So we can go ahead and say.
Well, let's not decide that. I mean, what do people think?
I support that idea.
Sounds much better than a 5-hour meeting.
Yeah, I agree. I think the CAP makes sense to push out a little bit, and honestly, my thought is to have the urban forest and the cap be a little more staggered in the calendar consistently generally.
Okay.
In the long run, just because having those back to back does feel like they're gonna bump into each other periodically as we get different things that are more time sensitive. So
Sure.
maybe it would make sense to do one in the fall, one in the spring long term, or something like that to consider, but that's maybe something we bring back to the full commissioner. The chair can work with Adrian, you and Stan and Sam on or something like that, but I do feel like, because right now they're scheduled to fall September, October,
October, November.
November, yeah, so kind of back to back at the end of the year there.
So it would be better than October, January, or October, February, or something like that?
Yeah, something like that, makes more intuitive sense to me.
So is there a second to that?
We don't need a motion for that.
Right.
That's a good direction for us. I think so with that, the only other thing might be when we get the quorum or we know who will be able to attend the November meeting, it's possible that maybe the discussion of the subcommittee will shift into the new year as well. Just to make sure that the people who need to be in the room are in the room. So that's the only modification that we could potentially also make, and then that just doesn't make that meeting in November more manageable in terms of the focus requested for the commission.
So before we adjourn, I guess this is a commission thing, not a private thing. If I understood Donna, she said that I and somebody else were on this general plan something,
Yes, so.
and I haven't been notified.
Okay, I didn't know, and I will remind you that we will open for public comment just in case, because we do still have a member of the public in the room for this item. But yes, so last Tuesday, so that would have been, I think, the 21st, the council met and discussed the general plan committee, which we did have applications submitted for folks who wanted to participate. There were 6 commissions that were included, requested to submit applications. And of those, we had 2 folks from this commission submit. And they approved the list of folks for that committee at their meeting on Tuesday, which includes Sarah and Jim. You will be notified by the clerk if you have not been already, which you have not, so you will be.
Congratulations.
And obviously, you know, this time is volunteered, that time is also volunteered, and it's a tremendous thing for people to do with their precious time to, you know, share it with their city and to do the work that you do in order to make us, you know, function better, move forward better, you know, adhere to our policies and do all those things. So we really, really appreciate the investment of your time into these efforts, you know, moving forward into this commission, opportunities that might come up, other things. It's of huge value to us.
And we'll be sort of representing as well as communicating with the commission, so we'll be in touch and so on.
Jim has experience with this, because when we did the urban forest management plan and the CAP, there was a sort of, this will be a little bit different because there's a committee instead of a host commission, but there was sort of a host commission that would have the discussion, and then the liaison would come back to the commission and provide an update with what was going on and being discussed. Any decisions or direction from the commission would of course be a regularly scheduled item for the commission to consider. Otherwise, it was very helpful to get those updates.
So with that, I think we have finished the agenda.
Public comment for long range, just in case.
Oh, public comment. Yes, thank you.
Hi, Chris Granger with Cool Davis. I just wanted to suggest there are some other things sort of moving regionally right now that this commission might want to pay attention to on their calendar. So the Climate Commission for Yolo County is being reconstituted, and I don't think they've set their meetings yet, but they did have overlapping meetings with this commission previously, so paying attention to that kind of scheduling. There is a new resilience collaborative forming, doing its planning right now, which is going to involve all of the jurisdictions, plus community-based organizations and businesses and the like. Other communities are choosing to have representative structures, like people from their climate commission are sitting on the YOLO Climate Commission. So just some thoughts about making some, thinking about those connections, both informal and maybe more formal thinking about representation and timing between those activities that are starting to be launched. Thank you.
So with that, does anybody want to move that we adjourn?
I move that we adjourn.
I'll second.
Yes, all in favor.
Aye.
Thank you for a wonderful meeting.
Thank you, guys.